Christine is recapping the November NHRL event with some of the competitors on this episode of Outside of the Box.
Every time we went head-on-head, I got the better of them. That gave me like a big boost of confidence going into like the later rounds.
It was a pretty good back and forth, and then I hit him. He bounces off the floor, and his weapon or a fork mount got stuck on the camera mount on the side of the arena. So he's there just dangling like a fish somebody just caught.
You'll get in the box with Kablooey because they're cursed. If you do, you're not going to turn on. And that's what we saw for 3 times in a row.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I have to tell everyone that the November event was super thrilling for me to watch. And one of those reasons that it was super thrilling to watch is the absolute crazy run that Sir Slicey had in the 3-pound division. So I am so excited to have Evan and Sal here with me to talk about Sir Slicey. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I have to preface this by saying, and Sal can confirm this for me, this was not a Sir Slicey won, so I need to talk about this robot on the show. I messaged you way early into the day, and I was like, I really would like to talk about Sir Slicey no matter what happens. So it was super exciting to see you continue on. So obviously a really exciting day, but I think the interesting thing that I want to talk about before we get into the bracket is that I don't know, I'm sure there's a statistic somewhere of robots that go 2-1 in qualifying, but then end up winning the whole thing. Qualifying, obviously really good job, but it wasn't a clean sweep. You did have a judge's decision lost to Showtime. So I just want to touch briefly on that qualifying round because obviously beat Deep Melt, really good robot, beat Verticalizer, really good robot. Talk a little bit about the Showtime fight and why that one was a bit more of a challenge.
So Showtime is like has a thinner vert, and the blades on Sir Slicey, there's like the space between the 2 blades in the pulley, and he had reach on me. So like whenever like we engaged, like it didn't like both of us went flying, but like there's this like one hit where I went head on with him and he just like hit the belt, and then like everything went out of control from there. He hit one of the wheels, I was losing drive, and he had an extremely aggressive drive style and he did an amazing job.
Yes, Showtime is a very good robot. I have seen it fight in person, and that makes complete sense why it would have gone that way for you. I had to imagine, though, like you were still probably feeling pretty good going into the bracket rounds.
Did you feel good when we went in?
Yeah, I feel like I could do pretty well. I mean, I didn't know too much about the round of 64 about Pastrami, I think, but I watched a few of their fights and I knew I could beat them, but there also looked like to be a pretty good robot. But every time we went head-on-head, I got the better of them, so I was able to like knock them out, and that gave me like a pretty big boost of confidence going into like the later rounds.
Yeah, I think it's always good to get into the bracket and have a really good first fight. And I mean, I think that tap out is probably the best that you could hope to do in a fight like that. So yeah, and honestly, Pastrami was not a robot that I knew much about either. So that doesn't really surprise me. But good way to start off getting into the bracket. Now, I really, really want to talk about that Caldera fight because I mean, like Glenn is just so good. And Caldera, I think, is a difficult robot to beat on any day, but you really looked like you knew what you were doing against Caldera and fought that exactly as you should have. What was your plan going into it, and how did you feel, coming away getting Caldera on a tap out?
So going into it, like Caldera is like the number 2 robot now, I think. So I was like obviously extremely nervous. But like I fought Caldera twice before. And so I kind of knew like how he drove and like where to like hit him. So I had a feeling if I could like line it up right, I might stand a chance. But like I got like super lucky with like the hits and the engagements and like making him use his unstick in like the first like 30 seconds of the fight. So it was just incredible, the whole fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd call it lucky. It sounds like you did your homework and you learned from the previous fights to make sure that that you could get him on that one. It looked like super expert driving to me. But you kind of had a new challenge in Loopy in the next fight because those torque walkers, I mean, I think that anybody could say it's a very difficult robot to fight because they're so chaotic and you never know what's going to happen. Again, I mean, I thought that you did just an amazing job going up against something that is such a challenge. I mean, I'll kind of ask you the same question. How did you feel about it? Because you don't come across that type of robot every day. And then being able to, again, come away with the win, this time in a judge's decision.
So yeah, I was again really scared to fight Loopy because torque walkers are like extremely hard to fight because it's just all weapon. There's like no easy place to get a hit. And we took like a bunch of damage from Caldera. And going into the box, we didn't even know if the weapon was gonna spin the right way. So like seeing it like spin the right way and work, like that was like a win on its own there. And
Yeah, I think it was, they called us up a little early for that fight. And we knew we only had a couple of minutes to be ready and in the box. And we happened to have put the weapon on backwards and we had swapped the motor and it was running backwards. So we had like 5 minutes just to get everything quickly set the right way. We didn't get a chance to test it until you did the test spin in the in the cage. So definitely keeping our fingers crossed that we had everything right in the last couple of minutes there.
Yeah, that had to be stressful for sure. Yeah, but I mean, like, just outstanding job. I mean, at that point that put you in prime time, which I think everybody kind of strives to get to that point, which is exciting. And you kind of face a different challenge there going up against the wall part 2, which is a robot that obviously did really well in a prior event, and has been improving and things like that. Really hard to fight. What was your plan for that? Because I think a little bit different than some of the robots that you had fought earlier in the day for sure.
yeah, I had a much different strategy going like up against the wall than I did like Loopy or Caldera. He's a like Ben is an amazing driver, and I knew it was gonna be like a super hard fight either way. But I was just like hoping there's like one chance he would like mess up somewhere and I'd be able to string in a hit and like do a bit of damage to him. And he ended up getting his hammer saw stuck in the floor, and that was just like what set the fight.
Yeah, that was definitely the turning point of that fight. You just had that small opening and luckily you're able to get it and that turned it. And from the rest of the fight on, we had a pretty good shot there.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Like, I love hammer saws, but that's the risk that potentially comes with that type of weapon. And you were obviously able to capitalize on that, which was amazing. Now, the next fight, which was the top 4 fight, and first of all, at that point, like you would have known for sure that you had qualified for finals. Talk about that feeling, because I mean, like, you're so young and you're so skilled at fighting robots, and to be able to achieve that, I mean, like, there's a lot of full-grown adults that have been doing this for years that haven't been able to do that. So talk about that feeling of getting the qualification.
So the second event I ever came to. I was there as a spectator, and it was the champs event. And like for like my first, ever since like my first competition, I was like, I wanted to make champs, even though I didn't think I'd be able to do it, because there's like so many like older and better competitors out there, and it's like just an amazing feeling being able to like be able to be there and like compete with all those amazing robots.
I think going in, that was really our goal. Now, not necessarily one we thought we were going to hit with the lineup that was in November NHRL. It was really stacked. So we went in there kind of knowing this is going to be a really hard road, but man, if we could qualify, that'd be just absolutely amazing. So at that point, we were ecstatic. It's no matter what happened the rest of the time, that was just to be able to come back in December is going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. So you qualified. You are getting a rematch of sorts against Team Liftoff, albeit with a different robot of theirs, which is the Project Liftoff 3. I mean, honestly, just to me, such a difficult robot to fight because it's so low to the ground. I mean, that team has been working on those robots forever and ever and ever, and so skilled. What I guess when in your mind, it's like, what do you do against a robot like that? You figured it out, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that fight and how it went.
So I think that one going in, the strategy there was we couldn't let them spin up as much, right? Uh, Once they get spun up, they hit so hard, it was going to do damage. We didn't know we'd be able to keep going the whole time. So really the idea was hit them quickly, and then if they do get spun up, just slowly kind of inch in there, get them off balance, and then go after them really hard. And you kind of did that the whole time. You executed it just the way you needed to get a couple times where they're off balance, and you can get a couple good hits in, roof them a couple times, and luckily the bot just managed to take the damage it did get. Because we got a couple hard hits from them. They're a really strong bot, and that was a pretty close match in the end. It's pretty nervous just watching it for myself. And he's doing all the work. I just stand there, but I could, it's just hard watching it because it's so close in that fight.
I mean,
Yeah.
Project Liftoff is like a super scary bot to go up against. I did fight D-Mill earlier that day, which is like extremely similar, but like Project Liftoff is like there's like some differences to it, and it's better than Deep Melt in my opinion. And like the driving is not AI, so it's like, and Project Liftoff was like having their day too. Like they seemed unbeatable.
Yeah, I would agree. It looked really, really good that day for sure. But you managed to figure it out. I mean, there's technically, I don't know that there's judges points for how many flips you get a robot to do, but there were quite a few of those, and I'm sure that contributed somewhere in the aggression and control points. I mean, winning that fight that put you in the finals versus Mako. Which I mean, like I can say personally, there was a time where I thought I was going to have to fight Mako, and I was terrified, like very terrified at the possibility of having to do that. And not only that, but I know that Julian was very motivated that day, and I think had made a comment that he was going to eat Mako if he didn't win the golden dumpster. So, first, but before we talk about the fight, how are you feeling about fighting Mako? Who we've seen rupture batteries and send many robots into a sand bucket.
I was nervous, but like I fought Mako 6 times.
It's been a lot. He's one of the first people we met in the sport after we got through our first event, and he and Dima are just awesome people. You actually grudge matched him, I think, in your second event.
Yep.
Both him and Dima, and so there have been people we talk to all the time when we're there, and really root for each other. So we seem to constantly get paired up. So it's kind of almost like fate that we were going to get paired up again in the finals.
That was actually my second time meeting him up in the finals. I met him in the finals at Mass D once beforehand, which I lost. But like I had like a split even record with Mako, and it was like I wasn't sure if I was gonna win, but I also knew I could win if I drove right. I was like, and then like he had the ramp buddy too. That was like I wanted it to work, so it was a fair fight. But it's like I also made it this far, and I want the dumpster. So it's like very like torn if I wanted it to work or not.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that just because I was so nervous for you during that time where, they were trying to figure things out because I'm sitting there and I'm like, the batteries are draining. The batteries are draining. Like how much time? Because, depending on how much of a charge you had, I'm like, is the battery going to work for this whole fight? I was so nervous about that. Was that something that was in the back of your mind?
Um, it was in the back of his mind. I wasn't really thinking about it at all.
You got the adrenaline pumping, and we didn't know what was going on at that point. We thought it was just not working at all. So the first time they power cycled it and it moved, we were like, oh great, we're all set, we could get going and glad they can compete. And then they took it out again. We're trying to figure out what was going on. It wasn't until pretty much the end of that period that we found out that it was because their lifter wasn't working, that NHRL was trying to figure out by the rules, should they compete, should they be allowed to have the bot in there or not.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always you don't know what would have happened. I know you said that you wanted the second bot to work and everything like that. Do you feel that it would have made an impact, or do you think that you were pretty dialed in for that fight?
Um, it would definitely make the fight a fair amount harder to have like two of them. But I think I still could have taken it, but it would have been a lot harder. But
Yeah, for sure. So you obviously win that fight. Always a little bit nerve-wracking when it's a judge's decision, especially in the final fight, because you never know how it's going to go. Talk about just that feeling, that sense of accomplishment of winning in the end and getting presented with the golden Brett and being the golden Brett. I'm foreshadowing the golden dumpster and being the youngest person ever to win that. I think is a really amazing thing.
I mean, like obviously it felt like incredible. Like
I always thought he'd eventually be able to do it. I absolutely did not think it'd be anytime soon. So that it was so hard to describe the emotions running through your mind at that point. I was just so thrilled just to be there to watch him do it. And it's a long day. You're exhausted. You've been through so many fights. You're seeing so many people cheer for you, and it's overwhelming. It was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of golden Bretts, finals is coming up very soon. What's your plan, your preparation? I know that I've seen some rumblings of some potential brackets already out there and things like that. So I'm kind of curious about what the next month or so looks like for you.
So I think definitely a lot of prep. The bots took a lot of damage at this event. We had a lot of horizontals, and the frames are all a little warped and beat up. So I think we're gonna try our best to be 100% ready. But it's so hard to game plan for everyone. So I think we'll do our homework once the bracket's released and we know who we're gonna face. But a lot of it for us is just when we get there, it's to get fight by fight and figure out what we need to do, and hopefully not look too far ahead, because it's easy to lose sight of what you need to do in the first fight if you're looking ahead. So we try our bestest to focus there. But it's going to be awesome to go down to finals. Cannot wait.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited for you. I certainly think that Sir Slicey has a great chance, given how it performed at this last event. And I wish you both all the luck in the world. And we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, this episode will continue as we are talking about all of the various weight classes. So we're going to be talking about 12 pounds next. But thank you so much, Evan and Sal. It was great speaking with you, and keep watching the episode. And we are back, and it is time to talk about 12s, which was, I mean, this event was just, I thought, amazing front to back. And, certainly the 12-pound division was no exception. And for this segment, I have with me David Small back on the show to talk about Son of Kram. And we could talk, a little bit about Puca too, because I always think that it's, an interesting day when you have to worry about more than one robot. So looking at the day, I'm kind of curious, just in general, I always like to see, how were you feeling going into the day with your robots? I mean, did you have any kind of idea of, how well you felt you might do?
It's always, me personally, I'm always really nervous until after the first fight. Once that first fight happens, I always feel a million times better. At this point, Son of Kram and Puca have both been doing really well in events outside of Norwalk. So I thought at least one of these is going to qualify probably. I was honestly expecting Puca to do better than Kram, which didn't end up being the case, but I am thrilled with how both robots did. I entered the event exhausted because I slept on the floor of the airport the night before. And that was part of the plan. Just that's how travel is sometimes. I was traveling with a group of people. They were going to arrive one day. I couldn't find a flight that would line up with that, so I just said I'll take one for the team and get there the night before, sleep on the floor, and then meet up with you guys. So it ended up working out.
Sometimes it's just that way.
Right.
Like there's at least a few instances where I can tell you, I've talked to people that were like, I didn't sleep well, I felt unprepared, like whatever the case may be, and ended up having a great day. So it does
Right.
work out for some people. Now in a way, at least with Son of Kram, it worked out for you with the qualifying rounds, because you did end up having a bye due to someone unfortunately having to drop. So you only had the one fight versus Supernova in that qualifying round. Talk a little bit about that one first, is like you said, getting the first fight out of the way.
Right. So I've got the post event or the pre-event jitters. The robots were actually done on time, which is rare for me. So having both robots ready helped with the nerves, and then it was just like, do what I always do. The fight itself was actually one of the weirdest ways I've ever won a fight before. It was a pretty good back and forth, and then I hit him. He bounces off the floor, and it was like his weapon or a fork mount or something got stuck on the camera mount on the side of the arena. So he's there just dangling like a fish somebody just caught, and started to get knocked out. It was such a weird thing to see a robot just dangling like that before, because that's not something you see very often. But a win's a win, so we take those.
That is very true. Yeah, even when you win in the weirdest ways, I don't know. I think those are some of the most like memorable and fun, I guess.
Right.
But you got that win with the and with the bye factored in and everything, you got into the bracket in the 12s, and your first fight was against I-90 Off Ramp, which I believe was a new bot for this event.
Right.
So that was a judge's decision. Kind of talk through that first bracket fight.
Sure. So as a flipper builder, I feel like I'm allowed to say this. When you see your opponent's a lifter, there's kind of like a little bit of not like I'm gonna win, but like I'm still gonna have a robot after this no matter what. And that kind of helps with your confidence and your nerves going into a fight. So it was like, okay, um, we're not gonna try to underestimate them. We're still gonna come at them with everything we've got. And it ended up being a pretty exciting fight because after the first hit, they stopped moving. They were stuck upside down, and I just kept wailing on them. They didn't tap out, so I assumed they wanted to put on a show for everybody, and that's what we ended up doing. The robot caught on fire, so we had a really cool burst of flames in the box, and that's always what people want to see. So to be the person who caused it is always exciting. So always love fights like that.
There was a lot of fire happening at this event,
Yeah.
for sure. So I don't, maybe November was making up for October since they couldn't have fire the
Right,
prior event. So
The robots yearned for the fire, so they were hungry for it.
I guess they were. Now the next fight I definitely would have seen as a challenge because you were fighting Steggy, and I think, John has really iterated quite a bit on that robot, and Steggy has done pretty well in the past. I just had talked to Gator Robotics before the event, and I know that they were really looking to kind of do some things. So what was your strategy going against Steggy, and how do you feel that worked out in the end, aside from just the fact that you got the win?
So the first part of my plan was hoping that they'd run the drum attachment instead of the undercutter, but that didn't work out. He very wisely chose the undercutter attachment to fight me. Kram definitely struggles against horizontals and especially undercutters, so he made the right choice there. Um, it was a very tough fight because I feel like he would just go under my drum and just kind of slap at the chassis underneath me. So I have these metal and UHMW feet basically that he was beating the heck out of, and he was winning the majority of these exchanges. But then I think he said a set screw came loose and his pulley started to come undone, and then the weapon ate itself basically, and it threw a belt. And if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would have won that fight. So there was definitely some luck involved with that win.
I mean, that may be, but like as you said, sometimes it's just it's the way that it works out. Sometimes you may be the one that something like that happens to, and sometimes it's somebody else.
Right.
And that was on your side for sure in that fight. And now I would say that the next fight was. I would have been a bit worried just because I think that the robot had looked pretty good before that, but going up against Bulldon, you did end up getting a KO, which is ideally I think what most people want to get out of that
Right.
situation. But it was I thought looked pretty fierce up until that point.
Yeah, it was a scary robot, and that was definitely another, we got to make sure we're giving it all we've got, otherwise one mistake might kill us. But it was a good back and forth. They were pretty prone to getting stuck on the ledge, so I made sure to take advantage of that. I really try to be strategic with my driving and not always just, hit hard. I try to think of any advantage I have and how I can exploit that to my advantage. And that ended up working out since they used their unstick, and I believe that's how that fight ended, was they got stuck on the ledge again. I'd have to go back and watch it, but it was another satisfying victory.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that also, the robot being qualified and everything like that, that's always a bonus. And of course, making it to the finals. The finals, of course, was against Buzzkill. It's one of those things that's interesting that I'll be honest, like, based on how both robots looked that day, I really felt like Kram had an edge. But you never know how it's going to go. And Liam is obviously a very skilled builder. Buzzkill is a very skilled robot and has done very well in the past also. What was your plan to beat him, and how much of that do you feel you were able to actually execute?
Okay, yeah. So Liam's also a really good driver, so he's obviously not going to make it easy for me. similar to Steggy, I struggle with undercutters. So if I don't get lucky, it's like, oh, what's going to happen? So it started off with a pretty good back and forth. I'd land some hits, he'd land some hits. But I feel like the majority of the hits were going in his favor. Before this match happened, we had some issues with Kram because I ran out of the pickles, the side plates, as I call them. And I was drilling some holes by hand, and there's some spacers that go inside. And I'm still trying to figure out what happened exactly here, but I think I used the wrong size spacers. They were too big, so the bolt wouldn't go all the way through to the plate where it has to screw into. So we were only able to get like one thread or something like that. So after one pretty good solid hit from Buzzkill, oh hey, it's my cat Colby. After one solid hit, the pickle just fell off, which is not what you want to see happen, especially when and this is a major design flaw with Kram, is it needs the side armor to keep the wheels on, which is bad because when the sides come off as the fight went, the wheels just fell off shortly after that. And these are at the top of my to-do list to fix for finals. So I am happy to say that I was not knocked out despite only having half drive. I still had the other side of drive, and the weapon worked the entire time, and I was able to crab walk and wibble wobble across the arena and still land a hit or two, which was I think made for a pretty entertaining final.
Yeah, I did think that it was an entertaining final. And I mean, like, sometimes that's the most that you can ask, is at least have a good fight. And it certainly was. So I would say, honestly, a very successful day for Son of Kram. You know, like you said, you thought that Puca was going to do better than Kram did, and I wouldn't say that Puca had a bad day.
Not at all.
I do want to touch on you know how things went for you there a little bit, because I need to go back and watch the fight, because when I saw the result, I was like, what happened? But you beat Eruption, which I think it's one of those crazy things, because I know I heard the announcers multiple times say that Brian just had the eye of the tiger that day. And so I was like, well, I expect Eruption to go all the way. And when I saw that you beat him and that it was a tap out, I was like, what happened?
Yeah, I would love to go over that fight. But that was my favorite fight of the entire event. It was an absolute slugfest, just a back and forth. I'd roof him, he'd roof me. Both robots just bouncing around all over the place. And I felt like I was getting the majority of the exchanges won. Puca is kind of good against beaters in that sense because it's so low. If you imagine like a tiny circle and a big circle, whenever they intersect, even if they hit me, they're going to go up just because of the geometry of these two circles intersecting. So I feel like Puca has an advantage in that sense. So I was winning a lot of these exchanges, and then eventually I hit him and he stopped moving. He was stuck upside down. I can't remember if his drive was still working or not, but I think his weapon was dead. So instead of waiting for the KO, he hit the button and knocked it out, which was a great feeling because Puca hasn't been that successful at a Norwalk since January 2023, which was quite some time ago. It'll absolutely dominate at other events. It does well at Motorama. It does well at local Arizona events. But then for some reason at Norwalk, I'll go like 0-2, and then I'll lose in a silly way or something. So to have the monster that is Puca show its ugly face again at Norwalk was really encouraging for me too. And I'm really excited to bring it back again for more events after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious, although I think I did see that fight, after doing so well against Eruption, you kind of ran into Mag, but I think it goes back to, maybe a matchup type of situation
Right.
that might not have been the best for you as to why that didn't go so well.
The theme of the event for me was I need to work on my anti-horizontal defenses. Both robots seemed absolutely indestructible against other vertical spinners, and then a horizontal would come and just sit down.
Yep. Yep, it's that whole matchup game. So I guess that seems like something that you want to work on for finals, because there's a couple of those robots in there that you might have to worry about.
Yep. So as soon as I got home, I've done nothing but eat, sleep, work, and then CAD for Kram. And the plan is to build a nice chonky wedge for both robots actually, but Kram has the priority, of course, since it's the one actually competing next. So we'll see how it does. I'll feel a lot better fighting these undercutters if I've got a nice chonky wedge in the front.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like probably the way to go for finals at this point. I mean, that had to be a really exciting thing though, to be able to get the robot to finals, especially when maybe you weren't expecting it to do as well that day than what you may have thought.
Right. I actually really wanted to qualify because after qualifying, this marks my 5th year in a row of qualifying for a Norwalk final. So half a decade of qualification is a milestone that I really wanted to get, and I'm really happy that I got it.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at the bots that are going to finals, I mean, how are you feeling about it at this point? Because you've obviously fought some of the bots that are going to be in that field, and maybe others you haven't. But knowing you, I would say that you probably have kind of looked up, some information on some of these bots that you haven't fought before, just to kind of know what you're going to expect.
Yep, I have a spreadsheet of every robot attending, what they are, what their weapon type is, and then if I plan on building a special attachment or module just for them, just so I can keep all this organized and have a plan for every single robot that I might fight.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the way to go if you want to have a plan for success. And then I think the last thing that I wanted to talk about this November event in particular is I don't know why I feel like it's almost always one of the last events of the year that it's just a giant BattleBots reunion. There were so many folks that were at this event that are part of BattleBots teams or things like that. And obviously it's been so long since there's been like a true BattleBots event. Was that just, kind of nice getting to see people and catch up, because it's hard when everybody's scattered all over the country.
Right. Yeah, it's always a good, kind of a family reunion of sorts when you get to see your BattleBots buddies at the Norwalk event. I did get to see some of them at BattleBots because we just shot the new face-off season. And that's probably part of the reason why so many of us attended so late in the year, is because we were busy with face-offs. But they said that's going to air in like 2026 sometime. So that'll be cool. Look out for Banshee. We're going to do some cool stuff. Can't say what kind of cool stuff, but there's some cool stuff. But yeah, and I'm really good friends with Jeff and Derek from Gigabyte and Jackpot. So it's always cool seeing them. And can't even remember. I know there's probably a few more other BattleBots people there, but it's it's interesting to compare the dynamic between BattleBots and Norwalk, because if I'm being honest, Norwalk seems a lot more laid back and friendly when it comes to the scheduling and the fight schedule and stuff like that. So it's always a good time to hang out with these people.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like kind of a whole different setup, right? Like it's a tournament that is being live streamed versus kind of for doing a filming type of thing where you have a little bit of staging and stuff. So yeah, it's a very different experience, but I mean they both have their own appeals that I think as combat robotic fans we all love and enjoy. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, really exciting to see what Kram does at finals. 12s, as always, are going to be probably one of the most highly contested weight classes, for sure. So we'll see how that works out. But we'll continue the episode talking about 30 pounds. And yeah, the finals will be here before we know it.
Yep, it's coming up quick. A little too quick.
For sure. So if you're watching, stay tuned to the episode talking about 30-pound robots. All right, so we've talked about the 3 pounds, the 12 pounds. Now it's time to talk about 30 pounds. And, I kind of thought a lot about who I wanted to have on for this segment from this event. And it's been a hot minute since I've had Leanne on the show. And I don't think Alex Crease has ever been on the show yet. So I thought it was a great time to talk about Kablooey Tango. So welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you for having us. This is definitely Alex's show for Kablooey though.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So before I dive into the event, the first thing I want to talk about is that sometimes a robot has an interesting journey just getting to the event to begin with. And I think that certainly was the case for Kablooey in this situation, because this was a robot that obviously was supposed to compete earlier in the year, but it was kind of missing. So I don't think I know there's a lot of people that ship robots, but I think this is the first time that I've ever heard of one going missing for an extended period of time. So first of all, how anxiety driven was that situation? Because it's like a big robot and just gone.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. Kablooey Tango, just for reference, is like I was kind of the original designer, but we have passed it around Team Valkyrie depending upon who's available to take it to what competition. So Lucy would take it a lot to NHRL in 2023, and then I moved to the West Coast in 2023 and competed at it at Robot Combat League Championships in 2024. And so earlier this year, I had been going on a trip. I was going on a trip, and so I sent it to Bam, another one of our teammates, to take to RCL Championships this year, and also to June Norwalk. And I had it's actually very conveniently fits in some standard size boxes. So put it in a box, shipped it to BAM for her to take to RCL Championships this year, and it never showed up. And I kept checking the tracking, and it would always say, you never received this package. We never received this package, and so I was like, I couldn't get file any sort of claim on it because FedEx had said that they had never received it, even though I went and dropped it off at a store. And also, it was a 30-pound robot that's definitely seen a lot of action and had a lot of events under its belt. And so it was really stressful, but also like at the same time very cathartic to be like, well, it's gone. I can start fresh on a new design and not have to worry about any of the old there's some parts of it that I was unhappy with, and I was like, well, I guess this gives me a chance to just start fresh. But so I had kind of written it off after about a month of it not showing up. And then 3 months later, Bam sent me a photo, and it was like, what? Where did it come from?
It arrived in time for open sauce. So there's
Yes, it
that.
arrived in time for open sauce. Maybe that's what it was holding out for. But it was just so bizarre to have it missing for that long, and then for it to show up. And it was definitely stressful at first, especially as I was like trying to figure out if it could get to BAM before these events, and I was calling the shipping company every single day, being like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then at some point, I was like, "It's like, I guess it's gone forever, and I'll just design a new one." But 30-pound robots are expensive, so that was the big downside of redesigning from scratch, especially, is that there's a lot of stuff about Kablooey Tango that works really well, and there's a lot of stuff that also can't be remade now. A lot of work and a lot of effort that went into building it and making it as competitive as it is. And it was just so shocking to think about all of that work just magically going away.
Yeah, I would be very stressed. Even if it was a 3-pound robot, I would be like, where where is it? It's certainly a lot of money. And like you said, if there are components that work well, you don't want to completely scrap that and necessarily start from scratch if you don't have to on a robot of that size. Um, how were you feeling like after all of that and stuff going into the event? How were you feeling about it? Because obviously, like this is a great robot. I mean, it's obviously done very well in the past. Were you feeling pretty good about how it was going to perform?
I was really just excited to fight with it again. I haven't been fighting as much since I've moved, and I had actually gotten it a couple weeks ago and was able to bring it to a SCAR event, the Orange County Maker Faire event, and I competed with it there and got second place. And it was just kind of like Bam brought down the box, and I took it out and threw it in the arena, and everything worked. So I was like, I guess it works. And so it was just kind of like I feel like that was a good like testing ground before Norwalk, since Norwalk is very competitive, to just be like, well, is everything still there? Does it work? Am I missing anything? And so that was, I think, helped alleviate my nerves before Norwalk to confirm that it would be good to go. But there were some like mystery failures that I had during my finals fight, especially where my weapon just stopped working against when I was fighting Matt Vasquez and Lil Lash, and I still don't know why it stopped working. So I was worried that that would fail again during Norwalk, and it didn't. So uh, hoping that doesn't rear its head again.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And the funny thing is, interesting journey for the robot to get there, but also an interesting day for you with kind of the way that the day went. So I also really want to talk about that because I mean, it's one of those like two-sided coin things. Like, yes, it's great to just kind of get to move through the day, but also you want to fight your robot because you want to test it and make sure that everything's going the way that it should. So first of all, talk about the qualifying rounds where there were no fights at all because
Yeah.
you were scheduled to fight Barbie and also Spartan 30, both of whom had to unfortunately forfeit, which is a shame because I think those both would have been really great fights.
Yeah. It's just the whole day it was like, what is happening? Like, why does every robot we fight like keep blowing up just
I heard
beforehand?
someone
And
say we were cursed. Like, oh,
yeah,
you'll get in the box with Kablooey because they're cursed. If you do, you're not going to turn on. And that's what we saw for 3 times in a row.
yeah. And it's like with Norwalk, it's such a action-packed day, right? I love to my preferred method of competing is show up as early as I can Friday, make sure like everything is working on Kablooey, get through safety as fast as I can, check every single bolt, like build the spare robot, like set up the workstation. And so I try to like be as prepared as I can because I know that like the routines that you build, this happens both at Norwalk and also in BattleBots, like the routines that you build before a fight are so important to the success of that fight. Um, People have at this Norwalk. First of all, one of the things like arriving at Norwalk, everyone was like, "We're so happy Kablooey is back," and it wasn't lost in the mail. Um, but also, like people had come up to me and talked to me about how I had recommended that they make pre-fight checklists, which is a thing we do for Kablooey and also for Valkyrie, where we have this laminated checklist that has all of the things we need to do before a fight. And so we go through that checklist. I kind of make sure that like everything is set up the way that I like it, and then like we're ready for our first fight at 10 a.m. Kablooey Tango, just like Valkyrie, has a couple different configurations, different front armor panels, different top panel, and we have forks and different weapon blades. And so we like set up the configuration for Barbie, and of course Brian Boxall is an amazing builder. We've fought Waddles in the past a couple years ago with Kablooey, and so uh, just going through this process of we're going to check everything, we're going to Loctite every single bolt, we're going to do this pre-function test, we're going to set up the configuration the way we want to, we're going to take it over to the pit desk, like we're ready to go down. Like you get all of this adrenaline and all of this like kind of pre-fight panic nerves that
Excitement.
um, yeah that swell up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm back at Norwalk and Kablooey's back and we're finally getting to fight. And then like Brian comes up and is like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's not working, and it's like, okay, I guess we'll wait, like we'll fight again soon. It's okay. And then with Spartan had an incredible first fight. It was really exciting to see Spartan 30, because I know Johnny has had success with Spartan in the 3-pound weight class. And again, it was this like, okay, there's all this waiting and anticipation that builds up. We go down. I'm like, yeah, we're going down. The robots are working. We're gonna have a fight. Put it in the box, and he turns on the robot, and it doesn't. Nothing happens, and it's like, okay, like I guess it's bad luck. We well, but I guess where it was also like, I guess I have the easiest path to the bracket. Like my 2 qualifiers didn't work. So at that point, it starts to get a little bit stressful, because it's like, well, we're in the bracket, we're a high rank, but also I haven't fought yet. Like I don't know if my robot's gonna work. Um, and uh, and then with the third Barbie fight, similar thing. We went down. Like I see Brian turn the robot on, and just a puff of smoke comes out, and it's like, you're gonna be kidding me. Like, can I please help you fix your robot so we can fight? Um, so it was a lot of anticipation, and then it was just so weird because all of a sudden we were in the top 8 in the primetime pits without having fought yet, and it was 7 p.m. and I had had a robot ready since 7 p.m. the night before, ready to fight. So I don't know, Leanne, if you wanted to add how you felt throughout that whole day.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, no matter how many times you go to the box or any robot competition, you get that like those nerves. And yes, it's part excitement, and there's also a lot of anxiety and like, oh God, please no electrical gremlins, etc. And so like not being able to fight was like, ugh, but also like feeling so much for like both Johnny and Brian, with just like, I am so sorry. Like this sucks. Like that is the worst thing, is like to do all of the build, get there, especially if you're traveling to the competition like from far away, and then not be able to like hit it. And so like, I ran over to Barbie after to just be like, who done it? What's wrong? And try to get him to like for us to just figure out like where an issue could have been. And because it just seemed like so unfair to like go through so much work, and we're up till like past midnight the night before trying to get ready and stuff too. And I was like, did that before, and it feels awful if you can't get it across the finish line. And so that was just really, yeah, I felt really bad that that was the case. But everyone seemed to be of good spirits despite their robots not working, which is nice.
Yeah.
um
And I'm
yeah.
I'm glad, even beyond that, like Barbie was able to still get 2 good fights in between when we fought him first and when we fought him second, and Spartan was able to get some good fights in as well. So it was great to see that the robots were working. It was just like when they fought us, something happened, and it's always some weird failure where you have to take apart the entire robot, and it's like, oh, I think for Spartan, one of the ground plugs got disconnected, and for Barbie, there was like a gearbox grease leak that shorted the electrical system. And it's we go through so much stress to build these robots, and to have something like that happen where your robot has been doing well and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. It can be so heart-wrenching, and we've definitely been there.
Oh yeah.
So it's we want to have good fights, and we want to help people get to a place where they can have good fights too. So
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, the attitude that anybody should have. Like we all want everybody to do well and be at their best when we're fighting them. And I think that that just shows a testament to like both of you and your kind of mentality when it comes to the competition. Now, thankfully, you were able to finally have a fight with a robot that was able to get into the box versus Benguela. So, I mean, first of all, that had to feel good to at least like, okay, we have a fight. There is a fight happening. But talk me through like how that went, Alex.
Yeah, that fight, I mean, it's so funny because we fought Team Warrior so many times with Cuello, with Jubilee. We were at RCL Championships in 2024, and we fought Jubilee twice there, and then we fought Jubilee in the 2023 NHRL World Championships, and so like we fought them so many times with Kablooey, we were like, of course it's gonna be you as our first fight. But it's so stressful because they're such a strong team. Every single robot that they bring could easily qualify and could like easily dominate, and you see that across all of their different robots. And so that was when I started to get really stressed. Was like we could have had 3 fights or 4 fights to just get comfortable with Kablooey again. And I think that's something that happens with robots that like I haven't really run Kablooey that much recently, right? I could have had 3 fights to like dial in on driving, get comfortable again, like us as a team get comfortable repairing the bot. But instead, I waited around for the whole day and then fought Benguela and Team Warrior, and so it's like, wow, this is going to be a really important fight and a really stressful fight because we know that they're a really, really good team, and we have like no margin for error to like mess up like we could in a qualifier, for example. If something for whatever reason doesn't work, like that's it, right? It could be if we don't win this fight, we literally fought once after waiting around for the entire day, and I had come all the way from Seattle to finally bring Kablooey back to Norwalk Havoc. And so it felt like there was a lot of pressure at that moment because it was like, wow, like if we don't win this fight, this will be our only fight. And I will have been waiting around since like 8 a.m. this morning to do anything with Kablooey at Norwalk again. And so that's when I started to feel a lot of anticipation and pressure, and it felt like, okay, finally this is real. Like I know that nothing's going to be wrong with their robot, and it's going to explode because they've like they're a really strong team. They've also like they've had fights in this event before, and so I know their robot works. So that's when I really felt like, oh my goodness, this is like this fight has a lot yeah, a lot of anticipation, a lot of stress, um and then also knowing that if I won then I'd have to fight them again with Jubilee. So, and so it went from like us waiting around all day, going through the motions, prepping the robot over and over and over again to like, oh my gosh, finally we have a fight, and we've got to make it a good one. So that fight, it's always so, I don't know, fights always are much shorter when you watch them back than actually when it happens. Um, but Kablooey worked great, just like it's supposed to. I think Kablooey has really proved the power of the forked undercutter meta, and that's kind of what we have seen over the last couple years, is that there's many more forked undercutters because you can see just how well they work against wedged vertical spinners. And the team gave me the wedge afterwards, which was brand new before the event, and you can see just how bent it is and how scraped up it is, and that's exactly how Kablooey is supposed to work, right? Get under the wedge and bend it and beat it up. And so it was just so satisfying to like finally see Kablooey performing like it used to again, and to finally have a really great fight in.
Yeah, That's what that's what you hope for, obviously. Like you mentioned, you ended up, fighting them again with Jubilee. That fight did not end up going your way. I'm curious for you, kind of juxtaposing the two fights. Why do you think that that fight wasn't as successful for you as it was versus Benguela?
Yeah, Jubilee, I was not as stressed about as Benguela because I think partially because like, well, if we beat Benguela, we qualify, and then like at least I'll have another chance to fight, right? Um, so the robot is actually at my parents' house in New York, um, and all of the tools so that I don't have to ship it back and forth. Like, um, but so I feel like the pressure was a little bit off. Like, okay, at least I got one good fight in and I qualified. So like I qualified for World Championships, so like all is not lost. With Jubilee, I don't know. Like we fought Jubilee in the past, and we've won. We had beaten them twice before. They'd beaten us once before, and typically we kind of wedged them around with the front of Kablooey. But we just had a bad hit early in the fight and spent most of the fight upside down, and I kind of forgot how to drive upside down. It's like what happened. And so even though it was not not a win for Kablooey, I think just coming all this way and having Kablooey come all this way and getting to see so much of the Norwalk community again, and also Leanne and John from Team Huge all coming out to help. Um, just like getting to fight and getting to qualify was like, okay, we made it this far. Like we don't need to win, but it was disappointing to have that. There was just a weird hit where we bounced and then we flipped upside down, and I couldn't really do anything and couldn't really hit them upside down and couldn't self-right. But somehow I still managed to kill their weapon. It was disappointing, but I'm glad we got two fights in, and that we qualified. And again, like Team Warrior, they have such amazing bots. It's always a pleasure to fight them. They're such a great team. I love to see them at any of the events that I'm participating in. So it was fun to fight them again. And we joked like, yeah, of course, at Norwalk Finals, we're going to be the first matchup is Kablooey Tango versus Jubilee, since we've now fought them 4 times.
Wasn't it one of the guys was saying also like they have now fought you more times than a lot of their friends robots in Brazil?
Yes.
Like just the more common competitions they go to, they're like, no, we keep seeing you more
Yeah.
than any other fight, which is pretty ridiculous. And like, yeah, I've been there for quite a few of them now. Um, but also, one of the fun hits that I saw from the night was actually Jubilee hitting Drift and making Drift woo. And Drift is a whole 60-pound robot, and we're only 30. And so I felt a lot better seeing them be able to flip a 60-pound robot with a squared up hit the same way that we uh we kind of had a similar one. I think it was just sort of that impact of like two fully spun up and boop. Um, strategy considerations.
Yeah. And on the West Coast, this is also like a regional arena difference that caused this. On the West Coast, there's steel floors, and I have a configuration for
Right.
Kablooey that has magnets, and so we're much more planted when we make contact with other robots on the West Coast, and that's what I'm used to. But on the East Coast and at Norwalk, there's wood floors, and so we have our like cleats that dig into the wood, but they don't keep us as like planted down on the ground whenever we hit. So it's kind of a slight difference in how we have to drive and in what happens after we hit another robot that can cause things like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And on the note about like seeing that team and a lot of the teams, for me, I felt watching this event like it was. I mean, not that there's not like a lot of BattleBots folks at like all of the NHRL events, but I felt like there were so many BattleBots folks that have been on teams or are on teams at this event. What was it like just to kind of see everybody? Because it's what you don't always get that opportunity, and so I thought it was kind of cool just to see so many people there.
Yeah, Leanne had mentioned during the event that this is about a year, almost exactly, since we filmed BattleBots Face Offs, and and again, since I had moved, I hadn't kind of been as regular in the robot fighting competitions, and so it's just it's such a great community. It's so great to see everyone. It's kind of like these events are community events. The community is what makes these events special. And so it's just um, uh, it was so wonderful to be back in the in the NHRL community, and and that like remembering and seeing like how much support that we have in that community. Everyone was so like happy that Kablooey Tango was back and willing to help out. We, especially coming from the West Coast now, like there were some tools that I forgot, and so like just being able to chat with people and everyone's willing to help out. It's a really special community in robot fighting, and just being able to spend time with all those people is always really fun. I don't know, Leanne, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's every time there's a robot event, it feels like some sort of like reunion, because you just have a variety of people. Like I hadn't seen Bots FC in a while, so it was really nice to catch up with them because I've basically like only followed them on the internet, and that's my updates of their life. So being able to see more people and like, some of the folks that I know having like engagement rings or wedding rings and stuff. I'm just like, oh shoot, like life outside of us doing this is continuing to move on, and it's just really great to hear like what people are up to and their stories, and like even in the NHRL community that I've like met in the last 2 years when I first like did 12 pound all-star stuff, being able to see them, it just you have that familiarity of like, I know you, we fought before, you beat me. How's it going? And that just is really nice, and everyone's really happy to see us. And I guess maybe like because we don't get to go to as many of them, folks are more enthusiastic, or like that's just the baseline because we're all nerds that uh build robots for fun. So when we're around our like people is when we all shine. Um, but yeah, it's good. And then the battle bots folks, it's kind of like there's some that like to do the smaller robots and some that don't. And I'm really excited already. Not gonna lie, and sorry, Alex. Part of why I'm joining you in finals is because I know Matt Vasquez will be there. So I haven't made it down to LA all year. I'm only 5 hours away. So this is a way to like be able to hang out and catch up and hopefully not have Valkyrie fever dream feelings of seeing Lil Lash shove around Kablooey, but we'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and even like outside of other BattleBots teams, it was also great to see our team in person again. Like
Yes. We had almost
we,
everyone.
yeah, we
We're
we
missing.
started. Yeah, we were missing a few people, but we had like all started in Boston, and Team Valkyrie was in Boston for so long, and then over the past couple years, we've all slowly been moving to the West Coast, but just generally spreading out. We have team members in Texas, California, Washington, and Massachusetts, and
Soon,
um,
Virginia.
yeah, soon Virginia, and so it's it was wonderful to like the last time we had all come together in person was at Face Offs, and it was just wonderful. It just felt like we were back, and we like immediately got into our usual habits of supporting each other and working together to help get Kablooey together and running. So really appreciate all of the support from the team members who could make it, Peter, Regan, and Luke, and then we borrowed Jonathan Schultz from Team Huge to help out with this event as well. So it again, it's just a wonderful community, and it's just so lovely to see people coming together and building cool things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Last question. So finals, it's not that far away. Unfortunately, you didn't get to probably test it as much as you wanted to in competition at this event, but what does your prep look like for next month?
There's a lot of small things. Like we did not take that much damage in this event. We have two functional robots. Um, what we did was we all of the parts that needed to be repaired, I ended up putting into a bag and taking back here. And a lot of the stuff that we're preparing to change about Kablooey for finals is really about making it easy to fix and quick to repair. So for example, there's some parts of the robot that like if you want to replace a certain thing, you have to take two other things apart. And so a lot of what I'm working on the design is making it faster to maintain and faster to fix so that, you know, it's easy to access one part and changing the way it's designed so that it can just slide off, or rather than having to be like the whole wheel needs to be disassembled to take a cleat off. And I don't want to have to do that because the cleats are one of the most one of the components that break the most. So a lot of it's about repairability. Norwalk finals, unlike the other weight classes with 30 pounders, there are more 30 pounders that come to NHRL finals than come to any other event. With beetles, right, there's 24 beetles that show up, but like a usual beetle weight competition has hundreds of robots. So we need to be prepared for really fast turnaround fights. And in order to do that, we need to get really good at fixing the robot, and the robot needs to be designed in a way that that it can be fixed and maintained really fast. So a lot of the small improvements are like designing the robot so it can be much easier to fix and easier for also because we'll have a couple other people. It's like we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the robot and with fixing the robot. So this was kind of a practice, right? We all remind ourselves how to take apart Kablooey and how to swap out a drive motor if we need to. So it's both like our speed of like how comfortable are we with the robot and also how easy is it to take apart. I'm looking at our list now, and a lot of it is really just that, those kinds of things, because we don't have the time to do a full redesign of any system. It's only a month away now.
Yeah, there's like a couple improvements, and then if there's like small parts that need fast machining, fortunately, the Valkyrie space in Berkeley has a small machine shop attached to it. And so it's like, you know, my tiny machine shop type of lathe and mill and stuff. But like, I immediately after the event was like, hey, Alex, we have tools. So what can we make? What backups do we need? I can think of one. And so that's kind of where, like, once I get back to California, will be what I'm working on. Until then, making Peter do it, which is fine.
Yeah, well, I will be really excited to see, you know, hopefully there you actually get some fights at finals and don't have to
Oh my
worry
God.
about the you know the forfeits or buys or anything like that. But yeah, I'll be really excited to see Kablooey in full force in action for that event.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wouldn't be bad if our first couple opponents forfeit and we just made it to the quarterfinals with no fights. I mean, at finals, that's the place to do it, right?
Yeah,
If we don't
I
have Jubilee, I'd be
guess.
happy. Jubilee, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, you know, it's shaping up to be just a really great finals event all the way around. So many good robots, really excited to see it. Excited to see Kablooey there. So if, you know, for anybody that's watching, if you love combat robotics, surely you must tune into the NHRL finals event in December, because it's going to be a good one. But also make sure that you like, subscribe, share this show and everything else like that. Keep supporting combat robotics. Thank you to Alex and Leanne for joining me and talking about Kablooey Tango. And we will see everybody next time on the show.